Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Tato Jayamudiraye.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is of our major conquest, we first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, and Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to practically nil, and thus loving service unto the glorious Lord becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 17, Punishment and Reward of Kali, text number 1. Okay, it's on the board. Please repeat. Sutta Vacha.
Sutta Vacha.
Tatra Go Mitunam Raja Tatra Go Mitunam Raja
Tatra Go Mitunam Raja
Hanyamanam Anatava Hanyamanam Anatava Danda Hastam Cha Vishalam Dandashtam Cha Vritsalam
Dandahastam Cha Vritsalam
Dadrishe Nripa Lanchanam Dadrishe Nipa Lanchanam Sutta Vacha Tatra Go Mitunam Raja Hanyamanam Anatava Dandahastam Cha Vishalam Dadrishe Nipalanchanam Sutta Vacha Tatra Go Mitunam Raja Hanyamanam Anatava Dandahastam Cha Vishalam Dadrishe Nipalanchanam Sutta Vacha Tatra Go Mitunam Raja Hanyamanam Anatava Dandahastam Cha Vishalam Dadrishe Nipalanchanam
Sutta Uvacha Tatra Go Mitunam Raja Hanyamanam Anatavat Dandahastam Cha Vishalam Dadrishe Nipalanchanam
Suta uvacha.
Suta uvacha.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Hanyamanam anathavat.
Hanyamanam anathavat.
Dandahastam cha vrishalam.
Dandahastam cha vrishalam.
Tadre nipalanchana.
Tadre nipalanchana.
Sutta vacha.
Sutta vacha.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Hanyamanam anathavat.
Hanyamanam anathavat.
Dandahastam cha vashalam.
Dandahastam cha vrishalam.
Dajase nipalanchana.
Tadrishe nipalanchana.
Anyone else?
Sutta vacha.
Sutta vacha.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Tatra gomitunam raja.
Yamanam antara antavat.
Hanyamanam anathavat.
Dandahastam cha visalam.
Dandahastam cha vrishalam.
Tadre nipalanchana.
Tadrishe vipalanchana.
Sri Sutta Uvacha.
Sutta uvacha. Tatra gomitunam raja. Hanyamanam anathavat. Dandahastam cha varshalam. Tadrishe vipalanchana.
Sutta vacha.
Sutta uvacha.
Sri Sutta Goswami says,
Sri Sutta Goswami say,
Tatra, thereupon, gomitunam,
gomitunam,
a cow and a bull,
a cow and a bull,
Raja,
Raja,
the king,
king,
Hanyamanam,
Hanyamanam,
being beaten,
being beaten,
Anatavat, appearing to be bereft of their owner,
appearing to be bereft of their owner,
Dandahastam,
Dandahastam,
with a club in hand,
with a club in hand,
Cha,
Ja,
also, Vishalam,
Vishalam,
low caste Sudra,
lower caste Sudra, Dadrishe, observed,
Nipa,
Nipa,
a king,
Lanchanam,
dressed like.
dressed like.
Translation. Sutta Goswami says,
Swami said,
after reaching that place,
after reaching the place,
Maharaj Parikshit
Maharaj Parikshit
observed that a lower caste Sudra,
observed that a lower caste Shudra,
dressed like a king,
was
beating a cow and bull
beating a cow and a bull
with a club,
with a club,
as if they had no owner.
as if they had no owner.
Sutta Goswami says, after reaching that place, Maharaj Parikshit observed that a lower caste Sudra, dressed like a king, was beating a cow and a bull with a club, as if they had no owner. Srila Prabhupada's Divine Purport. The principal sign of the age of Kali is that lower caste Sudras, men without Brahminical culture and spiritual initiation, will be dressed like administrators or kings. And the principal business of such non-Kshatriya rulers will be to kill the innocent animals, especially cows and the bulls, who shall be unprotected by their masters, the bona fide Vaishyas, the mercantile community. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 44, it is said that the Vaishyas are meant to deal in agriculture, cow protection, and trade. In the age of Kali, the degraded Vaishyas, the mercantile men, are engaged in supplying cows to slaughterhouses. The Kshatriyas are meant to protect the citizens of the state, whereas the Vaishyas are meant to protect the cows and bulls and utilize them to produce grains and milk. The cow is meant to deliver milk, and the bull is meant to produce grains. But in the age of Kali, the Sudra class of men are in the post of administrators, and the cows and bulls are the mothers and the fathers, unprotected by the Vaishyas, are subjected to the slaughterhouses organized by the Sudra administrators. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the first sloka of the 17th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Punishment and Reward of Kali. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who is opening our eyes, torch of knowledge. Although they have certainly been shut by the darkness of Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
So here we have some sweets that Mahabharati cooked from the cow's milk, and that was done by Shtika Prabhu. This is his very first batch, and we can have John distribute that for us. Everybody can have a little piece. Everybody can tell them how nice it is, and simultaneously give them a hint how we can perfect it better, if you know how to make it to begin with. I also got these tubes one gentleman donated, and despite being in this age of Kali, Srila Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as we know, is building the huge Temple of Vedic Planetarium to try to teach people about these things. So I have one poster that's kind of cloth. And if somebody would like that, they can take it and pin it up or frame it up.
Do you know the dimensions of it?
It looks like about 24 by 36.
See, that's a standard size. You can get the frame, so you wouldn't have to have a custom frame. You could get a regular frame.
Yeah, I don't know. You can look at this, whether, I don't think you can stretch this type of material. So it could go inside of a glass frame.
They put it on a mat board.
Yeah. Yes. As long as you can pass around, if somebody wants to do that and take it home, they're welcome to.
Have any takers?
Let me see.
And I'm not sure what's in this one. I forgot. But again, it may be the same thing that, I think it is, but it's on just, poster paper. No, it's different. It's Radhamadava and the 8 gopis.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
So if it wasn't for Lord Chaitanya's movement, we would not see them in the Kali Yuga, because it's not that they go underground, they go above ground. They are there in the local Vrindavan, but on the lowly planet Earth during the Kali Yuga, people don't generally know about them. There's the tube, where's the tube that goes with? There's the tube if somebody wants to take them home. And last but not least, they have some old BTGs to pass around. People can look at it. I do have one last picture. I think it's Radha Vrindavan Chandra. If somebody would like them. Maybe somebody else will go. Pretty sure it's Radha Vrindavan Chandra. But it might even be Radha Kanta from New Orleans. I'm not sure. And then these BTGs, you can let everybody take a look at them. Some old BTGs.
Are those out for grabs or you just?
No, people can have whatever they want. So here Prabhupada has defined what is going on in the Kali Yuga, how people without any spiritual initiation, not to have any initiation, they have it in the molecular religions of the world. And they have no training in Brahminical culture, Vedic culture. Culture and the mode of goodness is defined by the Vedas. So therefore, we see that the agriculturists, the people who are taking care of the land and the animals, especially the cow and the bull, how they have degraded them and subjected them to unending suffering, simply to make profit, to make money. And they have, practically speaking, ruined the health of the world by turning out all of these commodities, all these processed food products. So it's not only the cow and the bull, but it's so many animals, and it's also the system that's set up in order to make profit. How they have to can food and keep foods for long length of times and put preservatives in it, simply to make profit, and then it's sold all over the world. And people are organized to work in factories or office jobs to support these big corporations that are simply there to sell some products and to make money, or to offer some type of services to people and to make money. This is the unfortunate situation in Kali Yuga. Previous to Kali Yuga, people simply lived on their land, or they lived in their villages, or they lived in their towns, and they performed jobs that people would be familiar with today, but it was more arranged in the modes of goodness. People, instead of fattening up animals for slaughter, they would utilize the animal on simply their land to provide them with their necessities, such as the milk cow. And various other farm animals, draft animals, they would utilize to work their land. They didn't have to buy a lot of machinery. They could have a little bit of land, just even an acre of land or two. Cows could be pastured when you didn't have so many roads with big machines driving down them. They could be pastured on public lands, different herds of cows in the village. One or two cowherd men could take out a whole village's herd. And in the evening they could come back to the owners who would milk, and the cowmen that would be doing this work, they would get their fair share for their subsistence. So it was a lot different system, and everybody would grow different foods and trade amongst themselves so that they would have different products. When the British were attempting to conquer India, they had to bring an end to this system of every village being self-sufficient, because they didn't really need to buy anything from the British or anyone else. Each village was practically self-sufficient, and the whole subcontinent of India was filled up with these villages. People were working these lands generation after generation, keeping them fertile by the dung of their animals, and simply working them properly. So to destroy the system, the British organized for the slaughter of so many cows. It was like cow loca. There were so many cows and bulls. And nobody never thought about, organizing for profit, slaughterhouses until the British did it. And this way, with the temptation of wealth or money, which is a real symptom of Kali, when, as we learn later in this chapter, the reward of Kali is that he gets to reside in a place where gold or wealth is hoarded, where, greedy people keep it, in investments so that they can have more and more and more of it and pass it on to their dear relatives or whomever they want to pass it on to. It's not necessarily utilized for the welfare of society. It's simply utilized for their lust and greed, or their material ambitions, which can grow infinitely, practically speaking. When the soul is under the conditioning of material existence, then his desire just sprouts out into material nature, and he acts like the personality of Godhead in the sense that he wants to accumulate more and more property and wealth as though he's to become the owner and the controller of it. But he's not the owner. Here it said in the purport that the cow and bull was being beaten as if they had no owner. Anyone who owns something will not allow somebody else to come and just beat it and harm it. Even though they may be sending their animals for slaughter, they won't let anybody else come and harm that animal because of the sense of proprietorship. So that sense of proprietorship, it really grows in our conditioned state of existence, whereby we identify with this world and we identify that we have the right to own and control all that we survey. Prabhupada would use that word, all that we survey. We are the owner and the controller of. And it just grows with intensity like a fire grows. Just like we hear about all the fires out in the West. The winds fan them, and they just spread rapidly, and they devour everything in their path. So similarly, that's what happens to the desire of us poor conditioned souls. We become saturated with all these material things, and they just grow from cars to jewelry, clothing, homes. Then, we want the best for all of our kith and kin. And it just grows unlimitedly, practically speaking. And because we're thinking an illusion that we're the owner and the controller, then we have to maintain it all. And that becomes this huge, massive job that constantly puts us in anxiety. As soon as a storm comes, it can devour our property. Like Katrina destroyed all the pretty homes on the Gulf Coast. Similarly, there were even prettier homes on the North Carolina coast. Lots of money invested in them. People had fallen into illusion that they were somewhat safe. So I don't know what had happened. But at any time, just a storm can take them out. A bunch of them. Practically all of them in one area. So people are constantly in anxiety trying to do what is impossible to do. To maintain a state of existence in this world that is constantly under flux and constantly changing. And is simply meant to be used temporarily for the soul to understand itself and to return to its permanent state of existence. But, that's another symptom of Kali Yuga. They simply identify with the body. They have no knowledge of an eternal self. their self is not eternal because they're identifying with the body. It's inevitable that that body will die. So therefore they make insurance. The whole insurance industry, especially life insurance. That way you have something to give to, those souls that you desire to leave it to. So in that way they try to make so many things secure in this world, but they don't know where they're going at the time of death. So it's an age of darkness and ignorance. Why? Because we don't know where we're going. It's like being on the road and you don't know where you're going or how to get there. You're lost in the backcountry roads. And you don't have GPS, you don't have a map, and all you can do is just ask people, but because it's out in the country, you really don't see anybody. I mean, people either out in the fields or in their houses or they're off somewhere. So, to just stop a car and go and knock on somebody's door and ask them where the road leads to can be difficult. So it's like you're in darkness. So it's people in darkness, they don't know where they're going. I mean, they come up with a speculation. Well, I think it all ends when I die. That's what so many of them say. I think it just ends. And that way they feel some security now. But what will happen when it ends? What if they're called to answer for what they've done? I mean, in this life, we're called to answer for what we do. If you just do something wrong, a little traffic citation, they're sending you letters, they want you to come to court, all right, they're going to put something on the computer saying that if you stop, your license has to be taken. In fact, if it was a serious enough traffic violation, they may even handcuff you and put you in the police car. So people are forced to answer to what we do in this world all the time. I mean, from the time we're a kid to the time you're old, you're forced to answer for what you're doing, what you've done. And we think that at the time of death it all comes to an end. We don't have to answer anymore. As though there's no court in the universe. There's only a court on earth amongst the human beings. And all of us with a similar mentality, we don't have to worry about the animals we've killed because we haven't made it a law that there's anything wrong with that. You just pay your license and you can kill as many as the season allows you to. And you don't have to worry about it for eating because the slaughterhouse industry provides it. And that's done with the sanction of the state. That Prabhupada says the low-caste Sudras are. Why are they low-caste Sudras? Because they have no knowledge of how to do things in the best way. In the mode of goodness so that things are properly maintained not only in this world but in the next life. So they actually think like that. There's no universal law. Or if they think there's a universal law, they think that there's just one God in control whom they worship. Somehow, however, God has blessed their church, their organization. And, so long as they're acting according to that organization's blessings, they're free. Unfortunately, all these organizations support the slaughter of animals. And we have to study that. We need to research that. Because within those same circles, there are people who claim that their founder didn't say like that. That their founder didn't eat like that. So they have some onus on their shoulders. What if they're wrong? What if they're wrong? And these small minority of people are right. That really, their founder didn't eat like that. And he didn't think like that. So do you think they won't have to answer for it? I mean, if things are so good the way we're doing it, then why is there so much disease? Why is there so much bad karma? Why are there so many accidents? Why are there so many natural catastrophes? If we're doing things so right, why are there so many problems? Why can't we even balance a budget? The countries of the world cannot even balance their budgets. The whole world could go bankrupt. And yet these are our blessed leaders. So, people who are supposed to be protecting the animals are crucifying them. That is, according to the Veda, God's direction is for mercantile people, agriculturists. They're meant to protect the animals, not hurt them. Instead, they organize them to be slaughtered. They protect them so nicely. They fatten them. They make them healthy. And then they take them off for slaughter before they're even 5 years old. So do we think people won't have the answer for these crimes? When we hear our Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the most blessed book in Vedic culture, but they've also done that. They've minimized Vedic culture. They've tried to destroy Vedic culture because of what it says. Literally tried to destroy it. The Muslims went into the temple, and that's a Mideastern religion, comes from the same place Christianity and Judaism comes from. They went into as many temples as they could go into and simply destroyed the system of worship. Simply because they found it so uncongenial to their way of worshiping. That because they were not followers of their book, they were subject to their wrath. And they would do it in the name of God. It was all right to hurt those people. So they literally tried to destroy it physically, and the British tried to enslave the inhabitants by turning them all into brown Britons. Indians that would serve the crown. And to do this, they would prove that all their books were simply a product of the devil himself. And they did that in various unscrupulous ways. As much as actually changing religious texts when published in their languages. Misinterpreting words. Or when translating, changing things even. And then to say that all you people, you know where you really come from? You really come from Europeans. That was their big. How did they prove it? Not by archaeology, by finding evidence that some other people from a distant land, Asia or European mass of people came here and established things. They didn't have no archaeological evidence. They tried to prove it just through language. Hey, look, Sanskrit's similar to Latin. That means that, people from the Latin world must have come here and established it. So in so many ways, they undermined this civilization with the ambition of controlling the world. Do we think that the imperialists of the previous century were not trying to control the world? They fought amongst one another to control the world, while each was supplied by the same corporations for money, for wealth. Somehow or other, Srila Prabhupada was able to come to the West and expose this whole, shenanigans that's been going on, and to enlighten the world that, there was a culture existing that was meant for the good of people, that actually had a simpler life. And it is so congenial that we don't even have to stop and try to revert back to a type of civilization that we have no experience of even living like that. But we just have to start doing what we're doing in Krishna consciousness. And that will make life, actually healthy. That will bring us to a level of peace and serenity, even in an industrial civilization. What is the possibility of completely changing the world to a way it was 5,000 years ago? Instead, Srila Prabhupada wanted to Krishnaize the world. Even in India, what if they revert to just like Mahatma Gandhi wanted it? All kinds of villages, Srila Prabhupada wanted it. Well, what if you don't have a standing army powered by all sorts of technology of warfare? Do we think somebody won't come in and want to take control of things? Want to take control of the economy? Want to take control of the resources? And take control of the people? That's what they did previously. Have we not seen things happen to countries that could not defend themselves, such as right on the border of India and China? What was it called? It used to be called Tibet. I don't even know if they still call it that. Right now it's China Tibet. Well, what happened to their culture? And it happens all over the world like that. So we have the Krishnaize things. At least people need to be Krishna conscious. And people, how can people be Krishna conscious? Lord Chaitanya has made it so easy that if we can just vibrate the Maha Mantra, then we can't understand the amazing things that it does to make people Krishna conscious. Even people living in an industrial civilization can become Krishna conscious just by chanting the Maha Mantra. And simultaneously, we can do the things that the International Society for Krishna Consciousness wants. It doesn't only want people to look at beautiful art of Krishna and to eat, Mahaprasadam. It wants to also give the sociology whereby people live peacefully in previous yugas. But at the same time, it has to give Krishna consciousness to people who are immersed in the world as we grew up in it. And so, the movement of spreading the holy name and giving people Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita will not come to an end. People have to be educated, what these books say. And then we have to work out so that the future leaders of the world are much more Krishna conscious. To the extent that instead of fighting and killing one another over resources, that they'll all just get along and organize the resources for the welfare of one another. Is it very difficult that we as human beings can just manage the resources of the world for the welfare of each other and the other creatures of the world, rather than utilizing the creatures of the world and others as puppets, for our people's sense gratification? No, we have to see things with a spiritual vision. And if people can't recapture a vision of themselves as spiritual beings, then there is no hope for those folks. So first and foremost is people have to actually gain a Brahman vision, a spiritual vision. And that will be done by, a lot of convincing, like Srila Prabhupada used to have to do. His blood, sweat, and tears went into convincing people that they were spiritual beings. They were not their bodies. That there is an absolute truth that is ultimately personal. And that supreme person is the Father of all of us. And that simply by worshiping Him, people's lives can become perfect. So that, that's our great hope. The Hare Krishna's movement, great hope. And people may say it's an impossible task. The people in India thought what Prabhupada was going to do was an impossible task. So that was done. Now they say ISKCON's mission, it's an impossible task. But what makes it so possible is that just by chanting Hare Krishna, even if one is only Bhakta John, if he just chants Hare Krishna, it can change the world. That's the power of the holy name. That's the power of the sacrifice. In previous ages, when the world was being destroyed or being controlled by powerful demons, how was it changed? By sacrifice. What sacrifice? The sacrifice that produced things. So at the time of Lord Ram, that sacrifice that produced things came out of the sacrificial fire, chanted by bona fide Brahmins. What came out? Ram came out. And he brought an end to the derelict Ravan's control of the universe. So similarly, the sacrifice of this age is simply chanting the Maha Mantra. As purely as possible, following in the footsteps of Krishna's Yuga avatar, his incarnation for this age. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, chanting with love and devotion. And the whole world can be changed then, because it's being changed by the sacrifice, not by a bunch of insignificant human beings. It's the power of the sacrifice. In the Gita alone, Krishna says that of sacrifices I am the chanting of the holy names. And where the holy names are chanted, the demons flee. It literally said they flee. I can't remember the Sanskrit. It'd be interesting to look it up and see what that Sanskrit word is and how Prabhupada translated it. So that's the power of the holy name. So everything is possible. 100 years from now, we may not even be able to recognize things if we could look into the future. But now, the mission is incumbent upon all of us. Just like, soldiers have a mission, and, it's incumbent that they perform their duty. So the same with us. It's absolute necessity that we perform the sacrifice. It's important that people get up early and chant during the Brahma Muhurta hour, because that's the best time. That's the time since time immemorial that the sages and rishis and yogis and saints would concentrate and meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead by chanting their japa. Because the modes get cranked up as the sun comes up. And so much passion and ever combination of these three modes of nature come into play. Before the sunrise, things are a little bit quieter, and we can, chant, more peacefully. So it has to become a practice. There's no success without practice. A kid can be shown how to do a fire yoga, but if he doesn't practice under the teacher's direction, he cannot do it. It's only by practicing and becoming an expert that they can do it. So the same with chanting. It takes practice. It's not that it's a one-time revelation, that we get a one-time epiphany and that lasts forever. if another epiphany comes, and we again become a materialist. So it takes practice, it takes the honing of one's spiritual life. And that practice has to follow in the footsteps of the personality of God Himself, of the authorities coming in the line of bona fide teachers who are teaching the process. The process didn't just abruptly appear. Everything has some founder. So this is a Vedic process that has always existed on the earth. And its current founder was Lord Chaitanya. And its current representative was Srila Prabhupada. And our teachers, just like when I've mentioned it before, you go to any hospital and they have all these directors and previous people who started the hospital, whether it be the Mayo Clinic or Ashna Hospital in New Orleans. They have Mr. Ashna, the people who created this great medical institution, that all the doctors are following in the footsteps of. And expanding the knowledge of medicine. So similarly, our line of disciplic succession, they're lined up right there in the altar. We're following in their footsteps. We have to practice like they taught. Otherwise, can you perform an operation by not practicing as they teach you? No, if you make one little mistake, they'll dismiss you. What happens to the poor guy who gives the wrong medicine and a patient dies? No, he's dismissed a lot of times. They dismissed our friend Gopinath on false charges. False charges. Charges that were just drummed up to be bigger than what they were. He was dismissed from practicing cardiology. Not cardiology, but cancer specialist. He was dismissed. Rather than fight it and appeal it, he went and became a general physician to help people in the world. Simply because one doctor, was envious and didn't like him, and he drummed up, some little mistake he made it into a big thing, like it was an unscrupulous and unethical thing that he had done. 6 months later, that doctor was murdered.
Wow.
He was literally murdered. The person who did that. So, they're very strict in institutions. If all of a sudden the case turns on you, and they find one fault, and the opposition just builds it up and builds it up, a person can lose his entire position. They'll just give you a paycheck and put you into retirement. And if it's criminal, they'll put you in jail. So there's all sorts of consequences that happen. Even for driving tickets. Parking tickets. You go back one day, you may not have even seen the tickets because some camera took it and they sent it to the wrong address or something. And you park your car one day and you come back and there's a boot on it. And you can't even get it back until you pay the money. And if you're going to fight it, then you have to go to a court and pay more money to fight it. So if it's like that in the material world, then what about the spiritual world? We have to take the teaching and put it into practice as it is. And then we can help change the world. We actually become part of a team to change the world. Headed by Lord Chaitanya himself and his immediate disciples and their line of disciplic succession down to our Prabhupada. We become a part of a team to change the world. It's them who want us to take the time to meditate and to see Krishna's lotus feet. It's them who want us to offer Krishna, Bhoga, and then to take the remnants of that Bhoga. It's them that want us to go out and chant the holy name. We may not be a good chanter, from a musical perspective, but they want us to go out and chant, so we go out and chant to the best of our ability. following the leader. Generally speaking, the leader can give the rhythm and the melody. We do our best to follow. So in that way, we're changing the world. Distributing books. Who else in this day and age shows an example of protecting cows? They are so few and far apart that it's a big thing, the little bit of work that we've done. It's such a big thing because no one else does it. It's actually a big thing simply because no one else is even doing it. Or the few that are doing it are so few compared to our vast world. So, all these things that we do are very important. And they are helping to change the world. To make it, into a Krishna conscious place. So, we have to join the team and be a part of it and, and become a soldier or a disciple. Come up to the standard of taking initiation. It's not an easy thing, but time's on our side. We just have to practice. Krishna is time, and He gives us time. If we utilize that time to achieve these things, then not only will our life have spiritual meaning, but Krishna will take care of everything else in our life also. In our existence in this material world. These are things, worth achieving. But, it's like achieving anything. You have to go through a system. You don't get a PhD by not going through a system. Very few people are awarded, and then they call it an honorary. It's because of some person's great achievements in the world. They may get an honorary, degree at some university. So, same with us. If we can't expect just to get an honorary degree. We have to go through the system. But if we do our best, we're loyal students, then we shouldn't think that the predecessors, the Lana disciplinate succession, won't reward us with the benefit that comes from the practice. It's just a natural thing that people are rewarded for what they do. So just like in the material world, people are rewarded for what they do. So in the same way, if we serve Guru and Krishna, if we serve the Guru Parampara, we're rewarded. We're blessed. We've made a disciple. We're empowered to disseminate that message, to teach that message to others, to help others also gain the benefit. There's no greater urgency or job needed in this world than that. Because there are no people trained in Vedic culture. Life in the upper modes of nature. There's no one trained in that in this part of the world. In India you have some, and our International Society for Krishna Consciousness is much bigger there than here. But in this part of the world, there's no one doing these jobs. It's like a grand opportunity. If we don't take advantage of it, then 40, 50 years, how can you take advantage? You're old, you're worn out. You can't even, just like, who can go in, they don't even let you in the military after 40. Maybe even before, they don't let you in. maybe there's a crisis, and they somehow have to take old people, just to try to hold off the enemy. But they don't even let you in. You can't do what needs to be done. So, we have to take advantage of whatever position we're in. Take advantage of it now, because you don't know what's, later. Nobody knows what's going to be later, If Langa Ganesh wouldn't have took advantage when he was young, what could he do now? It's so difficult when you're older. Prabhupada used to say, when they're young you can mold them. When they're old, they're unmoldable. They don't bend. They just break. They can't take the discipline. So, now's the time. Of course, we're a community of mainly old folks, so we have to be grateful for whatever we have. Prabhupada would say better late than never. People could collect lots of stories of old folks who went on and became Krishna conscious, Even the one I just published on my Facebook, in Vandana, Maharaj speaking about his mother. She would never listen to him. She didn't care for what he was doing. He would send her books and they would just be in the garage collecting dust. She would just argue with him. She didn't have any faith in, what he was presenting. She grew up in the Western world. She had a different mentality, of life after death and, what is the truth. She would just argue logically with him. And then one night, he got a call. And out of the blue, it seemed like to him, she said, "Can you take me to Vrindavan?" And he was just, she woke him up during the night. He didn't know what to think. She wants me to take her to Vrindavan? And he said, "Look, Mother, it's late at night. Let me give you a ring in the morning, we can work all this out, She said, "Okay." So the next morning he calls, and his brother answers the phone. And the brother, when he asks for his mother, the brother's silent. And then he says, "She passed away during the night." He said, "No, she just called me. She asked me to take her to Vandana." So then he tells him the story. He says, "She didn't want you to know that she had been suffering with cancer for the past 6 months. But she didn't want you to know. She didn't want to detract you from what you were doing." So she started, I found her out in the garage one day dusting off those books. And she asked me to help her carry them in, and I brought them in, and she would sit in the chair and read those books. And then she started listening to your tapes. And she would listen to as many as 3 tapes a day with earphones on, just listening to your tapes. And then when she thought that it was time to go, she wanted to call you. And so that's why she said she wanted to go to this place called Vandana. So Indra Maharaj was very happy. So this was an elderly woman. She had cancer before she even begun a Krishna consciousness. But, she was lucky. She had some, son there that she, had been bothering her a little bit about it for, 40 years. And she decided to look into it. She could have looked into it and said it's a bunch of malarkey, But, she was moved by it. And, then she would listen. She probably wouldn't have been able to understand Srila Prabhupada. It takes sometimes, a lot of times, most of the time for Westerners, a little bit of practice to understand his accent before you can start to understand what he's saying. But, so she listened to her son, whom she gave birth to, and she could very clearly understand what he was saying. and she, it affected her heart to the extent that she wanted to go to Vrindavan. I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I don't get the story wrong, I think the brother said something like her last words were, "I'm going to Vrindavan," or something like that, and then she passed away. It was something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to actually look back on the story and see what, right, my memory's kind of stirring that she said something like that with her last words. So, she actually became, Krishna conscious. That's the way Yogindra Maharaj took it, that, wow, I can't believe that she got Prabhupada's mercy, she got Krishna's mercy, she became Krishna conscious. He never expected it because she just ignored it. Her whole life. Just completely ignored it. So it's for everyone. But, my point is that, I guess I was speaking out to the young. None of us are real young. Kara's like the youngest, and she's not exactly a teenager, So, but, we have to encourage the youth to take to it now, because it's easier. It's just easier. Of course, unless your mind's all over the place and you just can't do it. But, somehow if people get encouraged, just like they get encouraged about doing so many athletic things when they're young. So, somehow if they get encouraged about it, then they can really discipline themselves around particular discipline. So the same way, we can encourage them, and we find somebody who actually becomes encouraged, and then they can become extremely disciplined. Very strictly getting up, very strictly chanting, very strictly serving, and and they have the energy for it. They're in their youth. So they can take tremendous advantage. Prabhupada used to say that when you're trained as a student, we say brahmachari means celibate student. When one's trained as a student in the practice of Brahman, brahmachari, then that will go on to serve you real well in your later life. You can always reflect back upon that. When you didn't have anything, so to speak, and everything simply belonged to God or Krishna. We're not the proprietor of anything. Everything belongs to Krishna. So when you're living like that as a brahmachari, nothing is yours. You're just living in the ashram of the spiritual master. Nothing is yours. It's all Krishna's and the spiritual masters. Nothing is yours. And you're giving everything to Guru and Krishna. Everything. Even if you collect some money, you're giving it to them. So then, when you graduate, and you become a householder, then you naturally accumulate some profit because you have to raise a family. But the person doesn't become so attached. The power of the illusory energy doesn't affect one as much because they can always reflect back up on their studentship and have a very sound understanding how actually nothing belongs to me. It all belongs to Krishna. It's meant to be used in Krishna's service, meant to be used in the service of Guru and Krishna. So, that's the value of, young people, taking up the opportunity to become, disciplined. As a brahmachari in the Guru's ashram. So that will, that can serve one later in life. But even later in life, if somebody gets Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada runs into Prabhupada's disciples, or, gets prasadam, they can also gain the eternal benefit and go back home, back to God. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.